I've got a secret. I'm a Gen 1er. Could you tell? Pokemon's been a prominent part of my life, and surprisingly, a bulk of it is related to the franchise's first generation, Kanto. I was born in 1998, so I missed out on Pokemania, but by sheer luck, nearly all Pokemon media that entered my childhood was from that period. Like with the anime, there'd only be reruns of the Indigo League episodes whenever Pokemon was airing, and when my parents let me rent a movie from the grocery store, this was the only season they had tapes of. For Pokemon cards, I got the Bible. Right when I got on board was during the Legendary Collection, which was a reprint of a bunch of Kanto cards from the first sets. Like, the quantity of cards I have is kinda embarrassing. There was a point when I wanted a card for every Kanto Pokemon, but the obsession was so unhealthy, my parents correctly stopped buying them for me. For toys, yep, Kanto. And for video games, well, most of those focused on the first generation, but for a while I only had the spin-offs, the Pokemon Pinballs and Hey You Pikachus. At the time, I thought the games and cards were based on the anime and not the other way around, but I eventually got a real Pokemon game to play, and that wound up being Pokemon Sapphire, which has since become my favorite video game of all time. A game I've dedicated a 2-hour video on. But not too long after receiving that game, my parents got me a used copy of Pokemon Red. Now, all things considered, I don't put as much value on this game like I do with Sapphire. I dealt with the same obstacles of not talking to NPCs and having no clue to find key items, but I feel like with Red, the game didn't leave as big of an impression. It could definitely be a result of doing the Pokemon Song and Dance before, or the game being much more limited. But that doesn't mean I don't have a soft spot for this game. Being the embodiment of all Pokemon things in my life, I was absolutely attached to it. So let's get into the finer details and see how Pokemon Red holds up for me today. Let me start by mentioning this video won't go as in-depth as the Sapphire retrospective. I'll be skipping some routes and ignoring most Pokemon, but as evident by the video length, there's still a lot I want to talk about. And what better place to start than naming my character? There's usually nothing special about your name. I like to go for the character's default name or my own, but for some reason, the first time I played Pokemon Red, I had a random desire to go original. Well, here's a story for you. Around the time I got the game, my dad was prepping his body for a colonoscopy, so we had to tweak his diet for a bit, and one of the foods he would eat during this period was gelatin. So here I am playing Pokemon Red for the first time, sitting at the dining room table, and the game asked me my name. Well, I can't put Ryan. Only losers name their character Ryan. So I look around the room, and boom! A box of Jello. My immediate thought is, hello, Jello. But guess what? There's a 7-character limit. So with a stroke of genius, I abbreviated hello to hi, and named that motherfucker HiJello. So in conclusion, I have my username because my dad got a colonoscopy. I don't even like Jello. One of Kanto's biggest highlights are its starter Pokemon, Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle. An iconic trio, but I've always been a Squirtle fan myself. One of the tapes I'd always rent from the grocery store is Water Blast. Great ensemble of episodes, but my favorite was the one about the island of Squirtles, Wartortles, and Blastoise. I loved these 3. Squirtle was very prominent in the anime, and Ash had one that wore these sick sunglasses. I also had this kids meal toy growing up that I always liked to play with. For Wartortle, there was a brief period when I carried a card of it in my pocket as a good luck charm, and when I got a Blastoise card, I felt like the best version of myself. But there's a weird thing about it though, since this design wasn't in the Legendary Collection. Instead there was Dark Blastoise. And there's no way I'm mistaken, I remember very clearly having the OG Blastoise card rubber banded on top of my other cards so I could always see it. And as you can tell, I no longer have it anymore. One of the older kids on my afternoon school bus also collected Pokemon cards, and every so often we would trade with each other. He had cards from all around the world, and for some reason I was compelled to give up my most prized possession for a German Mewtwo. Now don't go saying he manipulated me, because I have nothing but good things to say about the guy, really. It's not a big deal that I gave it away. If I want to worship something, I'd go to church. Anyways, yeah, I chose Squirtle in Pokemon Red, and right in the high of becoming HiJello, I named Squirtle Rocketr. Cause, you know, Team Rocket, the franchise's villains are called Team Rocket, and they wear a shirt with an R on it, and at no point has Squirtle had any correlation with them. Don't lie, that's a sick name. So I'm gonna skip Pallet Town, skip Route 1, and head straight to Viridian City. I really like that the last gym is here, and down the road is the Pokemon League. Entry to both of these locations is restricted, which helps make the game exciting, since you know that eventually you have to return once you're stronger. During my first playthrough, I was always jumping back here to see if I could get in yet, and the constant rejection made the anticipation tougher each time. To the north is the game's first dungeon, Viridian Forest. A very easy maze to get through, but this is where most people people learned about the terror of the poison status. This is why my generation has anxiety. Of course, I never used items, although it's not like I knew what an antidote was in the first place. So Viridian Forest got very tedious. Poison Sting has a 20% chance of statusing its target, but I swear it felt like 90%. And because I was only raising my Squirtle, I was running to the Pokemon Center after every battle. My luck with Poison was so bad, I started running from wild Pokemon much more. But something really neat here is that there's actually a dev route programmed into the grass, so you can avoid wild encounters as you progress. Some rows of grass are marked with footprints, and Pokemon will never spawn here, which means there's a good chance you'll miss out on seeing a Pikachu. I've always found it super weird that Pikachu, the mascot of Pokemon, is very difficult to find here, only a 5% chance. I suppose it helped make Pikachu feel extra special, but I would have expected it to be much more common. I loved Pikachu back in the day, but it's not my go-to for an electric type. You're probably familiar with Pokemon Yellow, which is mostly the same game as Red, but with a few adjustments, like Pikachu being your only option for a starter. Unlike Red, I've only played this game once, and as you can see, not only was HiJello catching on, but I only have 6 badges. This is foreshadowing. The reason I'm bringing up Pokemon Yellow is because the only story I have about it is from my time fighting Brock, the first gym leader. He's not challenging when faced against a Squirtle, who has the type advantage, but when you're only using a Pikachu, Brock is indestructible. General consensus is that you should backtrack near Viridian City and catch a Nidoran or Mankey, who learn fighting type attacks. Well, I didn't know about them, so I did what any child with a dozen hours to burn would do, and I caught a Pidgey and proceeded to train it to level 36, where it evolved into a Pidgeot and was finally able to crush Brock. I then proceeded to light Pikachu to rest. Now, I can't ignore Brock's presence in the anime. He was my favorite character, and seeing an episode without him feels weird to me. Actually, watching so much of the anime before playing this game made me think him and Missy were going to be more important. In reality, Brock is just a guy whose personality is taking his shirt off. Mount Moon. This is Pokemon Red's first real difficulty spike. It's pretty easy to navigate with a team, but when I was soloing with a starter, survival was tense. Unlike the forest, wild Pokemon will ambush you anywhere. And since the cave is open and sprawling with tunnels, you'll wind up spending a lot more time exploring. I remember thinking these wall textures looked like spikes and that I was in the pits of hell. And with Team Rocket running around, the place felt so sinister. I wasn't quite sure what to expect from Team Rocket. Maybe they stole my Pokemon or something? You'd think that would have encouraged me to use more Pokemon. But they'll show up a few more times, and I'll talk more about them later. But here they're looking for fossils, which we end up finding. Yeah, reward for clearing Mount Moon is a Helix or Dome fossil. Just on the name alone, who wasn't picking something as mysterious as a Helix fossil? I don't think I even learned what a Helix was until like 7th grade science. If you didn't think the letter X was hot shit as a kid, your childhood probably sucked. Following the cave's exit is a large stretch of land with no trainers and no wild Pokemon. It felt like freedom. I've always been amused that there's a slope here that prevents any backtracking. I mean, I had no plans of returning to Mount Moon, ever. But when the world shrunk by taking that leap, it was like the game entered a new chapter. But there is one patch of grass, and oh man, during my first playthrough, my Wartortle was fainted, and I ran into a Pokemon here, and I couldn't run away because the rest of my team was too slow. And I had to sit there and watch it get knocked out, which forced me to go through Mount Moon again. And coincidentally, the first Pokemon I want to catch lives in this patch of grass, Sandshrew, which isn't available in Red. Pokemon's slogan has always been, gotta catch 'em all. But they do this shit where they make 2 games and sprinkle in a few exclusive Pokemon in each version, the other version being blue. From the sounds of it, this divide wound up being an awesome social experiment if you were in school when these games released, since kids regularly had Game Boys on them. Please note, this is entirely based on the opening of Space Jam 2. Using a link cable, 2 Game Boys could trade Pokemon with each other, or fight in a Pokemon battle. This wasn't something I could partake in, since my school banned video games, and my only classmate who openly talked about Pokemon exclusively collected the cards. But fear not, because I still have a method to trade Pokemon. Maybe someday I'll talk about Pokemon Stadium extensively, but this is one of the few Nintendo 64 games to connect with Game Boy games using the transfer pack, so I can export my Pokemon to use them in 3D battles, but I mainly use them to trade Pokemon between my games. So if I want to use Sandshrew in Pokemon Red, I'd have to catch one of my copy of Yellow and swap it over. I actually had a copy of Pokemon Blue for like a day, It belonged to my sister, and then it disappeared. Like, I don't even think she played it. That's how fast it vanished. And here's another dumb story, since we're still on the topic of Sandshrew. I love its design. The way it's bricked up is so aesthetically pleasing. When I was like 5, I wanted to be a Sandshrew for Halloween, so my mom took me to a fabric store, and we got a yard of this cool gold stuff. What the fuck happened? I went trick-or-treating as a cat. Skipping over Cerulean City, Route 24 to the north has Abra, who is infamously a gimmicky Pokemon. It only learns the move Teleport, so when you see one, you have to catch or defeat it in one turn, otherwise it'll run away. That's always been Abra's shtick, but if you're patient enough to train one to level 16, it evolves into Kadabra, who not only cost Nintendo over $131 million after inflation because of a lawsuit, but it also becomes very powerful. And on top of that, Kadabra evolves again if you trade it with another player, reinforcing how successful Pokemon was as a social experiment. One of the biggest complaints Gen 1 gets is that Psychic types are virtually unstoppable. Their only weakness is the Bug type, which is laughably non-threatening, and the only type that resists Psychic is Psychic. So if you're up against an Alakazam, who is one of the fastest and strongest Pokemon in the game, you're fucked. And there's a bit of irony in its power too, since Psychic was supposed to be weak to the Ghost type, but because of a programming error, it's immune instead. And that's the other huge complaint that these games get, that they're full of errors and glitches. If you hang around the Pokemon fanbase for a week, you'll be exposed to the massive hate boner the community has against Gen 1. To stay on topic, these games have a lot of bugs, but for some reason they get blown out of proportion. Like, yeah, you'll probably run into the glitch where attacks with 100% accuracy will miss, and there's a ton of mechanics that are programmed incorrectly. But I've seen a lot of this criticism get directed toward the glitches that let you manipulate items, get whatever Pokemon you want, find missing no, and reach the end of the game in 2 minutes get tossed around as reasons these games suck, when I can guarantee not one person playing the game without trying to encounter these has ever seen them. Some of the other reasons people hate Gen 1 is because Kanto is overused for marketing newer Pokemon games. Like in Gen 6, the game forces you to take a Kanto starter to promote Mega Evolution, and Gen 7 started the regional variants gimmick, which exclusively featured Kanto Pokemon. Gen 8 wasn't as bold, but they made the champion's signature Pokemon be a Charizard. And I don't think anything tops the fanbase's hate for Charizard. It's oversaturated, but it's also been one of the most popular Pokemon from the beginning. The Pokemon Company and Game Freak would be stupid not to shove it down our throats. Gen 1 has sold over 47 million units. It's one of the top 10 best-selling video games. If I sold 47 million of anything, I'd be milking that shit for the rest of eternity too. But back to the game, let's go to Vermilion City, which has several points of interest, like this house where I can trade a Spearow for a Farfetch'd. Gen 1 does this really annoying thing where 4 of its Pokemon are locked behind these trades. I totally get how exciting it can be to acquire these Pokemon unavailable in the wild, but I don't know. In my head, it's discouraging to use them. Probably because they have nicknames you can't change, like Mr. Mime will always be Marcel, and Jinx will always be Lola. There's an alternate universe out there where I can find a Lickitung in the wild, and it has become one of my all-time favorites. But because of this barrier, it never had a chance. Vermilion City's gym is infamous for its puzzle, which requires players to locate a switch inside a trash can, and then needing to guess which adjacent trash can has a second switch inside it. But if you guess wrong, everything gets reset, meaning some people can solve it on their first try, while the statistic majority will take a few cycles to succeed. It's all luck, and it can break you down so fast. I've had playthroughs where I'm wandering around here for over 10 minutes, and yet, I feel like this is a core part of the experience. Like, you haven't played Pokemon unless you can pass this gym. Also in Vermilion is the SS Anne, a cruise ship dungeon, and while its design is very basic, mostly hallways full of optional items and trainer fights, I want to see locations like this return. Gen 3 brought the boat back, but with a shipwreck motif. But let me ride a Pokemon Battle-Safe Zeppelin, or walk around the Ohio Picnic Basket building. This is an untapped market we're talking about. But how about a cave of exclusively Diglett and Dugtrio? Another popular complaint the Pokemon fanbase will share for free about Gen 1 are the lazy Pokemon designs. Dugtrio is just 3 Digletts, and like, yeah, that's disappointing. But when you realize they're inspired by Whack-A-Mole, it's a bit more acceptable, because that's a creative angle to make a mole creature out of. Magnemite and Magneton get this criticism too for doing the exact same thing, but again, it's justifiable because of their magnet motif. Now don't get me wrong, I hate how much this shit happens, but at least I'm trying to understand the inspiration. Why are Doduo and Dodrio conjoined twins? You know what Pokemon people really hate? Voltorb. It's a Pokeball with eyes, and it's genius. and then its evolution is an upside-down Pokeball with eyes. How did they peak so early? I think these designs are great because items in the overworld use a Pokeball graphic, so these two will occasionally act as mimics. They're two of the few Pokemon to have a function outside of battle, and I will not tolerate the idea that these are lazy designs. Anyways, when you go to Diglett Tunnel, it leads back to Pewter City, which makes it possible to return to every location that was cut off after entering Cerulean City. And hidden in this path is a house where the HM for Flash can be obtained. It lets Pokemon brighten up the next cave, and somehow both me and my sister missed this really easy to find item. Like, you see Pewter City and think that's the reward. Nope. Yeah, not having Flash, Rock Tunnel was the roadblock to beat all roadblocks. It made me stop playing Pokemon Red for a while. The challenge is finding ladders to get from room to room. Now, I'm over-exaggerating the difficulty, but I would bet that at least 1,000,000 adventures ended because of this cave. Without Flash, this place requires a lot of patience, and most kids don't have that. Hell, even my sister got stuck here when the remakes came out. I had to save her butt for once. Rock Tunnel takes us to Lavender Town, which is Creepypasta City. This place is infamous for a few reasons, the first being its unsettling music that ignited the town into infamy for many. But when paired with the fact that there's a Pokemon cemetery filled with ghosts here, it's understandable why this location has so much intrigue. There's a popular theory that this game's rival is here visiting the grave of his deceased Raticate, since after your last fight with him, his Raticate is permanently missing. And I can't believe I've gone this far without even talking about the rival. Old Pokemon games have very few recurring characters, the core being the Professor, an evil organization, the champion, and the rival. And of these, the rival is who you'll encounter the most, so the way they're handled should be pretty important. When I think of a rival, it's the person who's always one step ahead of you. They're better than you, and you know it. And there's nothing you want to do more than knock their fucking teeth out. And if you walk into any gym and check the statues at the front, it lists people who have beat them. And you know who's up there every time? Your rival. Fuck the Gen 1 rival. All my homies hate the Gen 1 rival. He's got everything that'll make you love hating him. His hair? Whack. His balanced team? Whack. His theme song? Whack. The way that he talks? Whack. Me? I'm tight as fuck! The rival is so threatening because he always appears when your guard is down. Like, I'm just trying to find the captain on the SSN, and look at that, I have depression now. This weasel motherfucker loves to appear at the end of a dungeon when your Pokemon are faint or weak, and you inevitably lose and have to do it all over again. I've harped on the rival in Pokemon Sapphire extensively, but you won't truly appreciate any game's rival unless you're using a small team. And in my starter-only runs of Red, these battles were always the most difficult until the end of the game. If you wanted to pass Nugget Bridge or see Pokemon Tower, you had to earn it. And if you're wondering what I named my first rival in Red, it was Tapioca, HiJello's arch nemesis. West of Lavender Town is where I'll catch my next Pokemon, Vulpix. Despite growing up a Gen 1er, Vulpix became one of my favorites only recently, mainly because I never used one, but it quickly gained my affection when I saw Ninetales shiny, and it's a Alolan variant. Vulpix is another exclusive to Pokemon Blue, and maybe you're wondering why I'm even playing Red if all my favorites are in Blue. Simple, I hate myself. Yeah, not having Pokemon I really like in the early game heavily affects my reception of Pokemon Red. Honestly, I've stopped half of my playthroughs when I get this far because I'm just bored using Squirtle and a bunch of Jokers. I'm one of those weirdos who will use the exact same team every playthrough. Like when I'm playing Pokemon Sapphire nowadays, if there isn't a Blaziken, Breloom, Swalot, and Flygon in the squad, I'm jumping off a bridge. But this is a good time to talk about a design choice with Kanto that's very commendable, and it's the amount of freedom you get to complete tasks. At this point, a lot of cities and dungeons open up, which means this part of the game can be completed in a variety of sequences, and as a result, the order I'll be conquering objectives will become very unorthodox. So first, I'm going into Celadon City to tackle Team Rocket's hideout, and this is our first real look at Team Rocket as an organization. They're like the Mafia, capiche? Bad dudes doing bad things. For money. There's a couple floors of baddies to give a beat down, but the highlight here is the spinning tile maze. Take one step, and oh no. Come on. 14 seconds wasted. Top of the list for things I love to hate. What's tripped me up a few times is that you have to talk to this one grunt after beating him to get a key. It's the only time in any Pokemon game where you have to talk to someone after a battle, and I can't believe I figured this out when I was a kid, since I have an amazing track record of ignoring every NPC until my sister picks up the game and does it for me. And there's one more thing I want to talk about, and it's the boss. Tony Pajamas. Giovanni is such a cool villain. The guy knows respect. He's not gonna hit you in the head for being an idiot, okay? Giovanni set the groundwork for all future evil organizations in Pokemon, and to this day, he and Team Rocket are the best. They're not over the top, and they aren't threatening the world. It's so genuine. After Team Rocket is removed from Celadon City and Lavender Town, we get the Poke-Flute, which lets us wake up these Snorlax sleeping in the middle of the road. I hate that these two encounters are the only chances you get to catch one. I'm in the party that prefers when Pokemon are rare because they have a 1% encounter rate, and not because they're endangered. But here's where the playthrough's gonna get funky. Normally I'd go through the routes past the Snorlax at a steady pace and battle every trainer, but this time I'm going to stealth past everyone on Cycling Road so I can get to Fuchsia City right away, because I want to save those fights for the new Pokemon I'm about to catch. Fuchsia City hosts the Safari Zone, which is easily the game's best dungeon, since it's a trainerless maze where you get a limited number of steps to navigate it. Additionally, there's a lot of Pokemon only available here, but instead of battling them with your own, you must use rocks and bait in self-defense. It makes catching Pokemon extremely difficult since they can run away from you, which means success feels extra gratifying. There's 5 new Pokemon available here, with 2 being version exclusives, Pinsir in blue and Scyther in red. And I suppose here's why you'll learn why I'm playing red. I love Scyther. It's my second favorite Kanto Pokemon after the Squirtle line, and this time it's all because of that design. The badass scythe hands and green skin tone, why wouldn't 5-year-old me love it? Now I'm only spitballing statistics based on Red, Blue, and their Game Boy Advance remakes, but Scyther and the lot have something like a 4% chance of appearing in their nesting areas, which means you should find one once every 25 encounters, or one every 15 minutes. And on top of that, they have an 8% chance of getting caught without using bait or a rock. Now the rock and bait shit has some cancer solving formula of its own. Rock lowers your odds of catching but makes Pokemon more likely to stay, and bait does the reverse. I say either throw a rock or go straight for the balls, because the rare Pokemon like to run away after the first or second turn. Factor in all these low percentages, and acquiring any rare Safari Mons becomes quite the headache. For my hunt, I got really lucky. 9 Scythers in 1 hour, with the 9th being my ticket out of insanity. I even scooped up a Chansey, which has a 1% encounter rate where I was hunting, and a 5% catch rate. It's an awesome feeling catching or even just seeing these Pokemon, but when you actually want to use one is where this experience loses all of its magic, because they can get so time consuming. If you're just looking for a Scyther or a Pinsir, there is an alternative method to obtain them, and all it takes is the acquisition of a gambling addiction, or for 110,000 Pokédollars you can cheat your way out of the frustrations of playing slots. Red and Blue have different prices for the Pokemon available, and I've never seen a worse trade deal in the history of trade deals than the prices in Red. Scyther is 5,500 coins, Pinsir in blue is 2,500. What? And then there's Porygon, who can only be acquired from the Game Corner. It's 9,999 coins in Pokemon Red, 6,500 in blue. Don't worry guys, it balances out. Red gets Clefairy for 250 coins cheaper. Yeah, I don't fuck with the Game Corner, but back when I was 11, I spent 6 hours mashing the A button at the slots to max out my coins in Fire Red, and this is what privilege looks like. And already, I'm catching my 5th Pokemon, but first, I need a fishing rod from this house just past the East Snorlax, and then I'll return to Celadon City. It's cool that fishing is included as a means to find more Pokemon, but it's one of those additions that I rarely touch anymore. Unless I'm looking for something specific and already know where to find it, the rod is staying in the bag. But I will say, a lot of my favorite Kanto Pokemon are obtainable this way. Cloyster, Kingler, and Slowbro. Slowbro fucks. There's no other way to describe it. I think it's so cool that Slowbro is a fusion between a Slowpoke and a Shelder. One of my biggest wishes is to use Shelder in this form without Slowbro, and it pisses me off that this was a scrapped idea in the sequels. But now that I've got 2 new Pokemon, it's time to return to every location I skipped to train them. I fucking hate routes 13, 14, and 15 in particular. There's too many trainers without any sort of break, and when I was younger, I found it overwhelming. Since then, I've always opted to take Cycling Road when I want to go to Fuchsia City. And I got a little bit to say about the gym leaders. I actually battled Erica the first time I went to Celadon. I just wanted to circle the conversation back to the city for a 4th time. Erica's only noteworthy because she specializes in grass types, which made my original Squirtle only run a pain in the ass. And I like how cheeky the devs were about having a pervert watching the all-female gym through the window. You know, nothing more funny than the highest grossing media franchise including a creep during their humble beginnings. And I'd say Koga's the game's toughest gym leader, using 4 poison types that like to increase their evasion. With bad RNG, he can be pretty challenging, and when we beat him, the Surf HM can be used, so now I'm gonna detour all the way to Cinnabar Island. I love Cinnabar Island. It's my favorite town in the game, and everything I love about Pokemon circles back to this location. To start, the coveted Water Blast tape includes the episode where Ash goes here and battles Blaine, and yeah, I think Blaine is the coolest gym leader, and I'm not backing down. I can fight him right now if I want, but I always save him for 7th. Cinnabar Island also left a big impression on me in this game. It's where it all began and everything ended. Whoever owned a copy of Pokemon Red I grew up with before it became mine last saved here, and at the time I didn't know about surfing, so I ran laps around the island before starting my own file. And for the longest time, I just wanted to get back here and figure out what you're supposed to do. And I'll reveal it all in a bit. But let's enter the Pokemon Mansion to catch the final member of the squad, Weezing. Believe it or not, but Weezing is the reason I got into Pokemon. Before I ever knew what Pokemon was, my sister got some trading cards from a classmate, and when she showed me, I instantly fell in love with them. Right there, it became my new calling in life. And I don't even play TCG, I just wanted to look at the illustrations and the cool fireworks holographic effects. We even had this book, The Collector's Value Guide to Pokemon, and I would flip through it all the time to admire the cards I could have. Imagine. Now look at me. We wouldn't be here without Weezing. So I'll return to Cinnabar Island soon, but let's get back on track and enter Saffron City, a town nobody can enter or leave because every guard is thirsty. It's insane, like he needs some milk. And surprisingly, this is a roadblock I didn't struggle on for very long. I like to hang out on the Celadon department store's roof, which has vending machines, so I felt pretty big-brained when I realized I could give a bev to the guards. Saffron City is being seized by Team Rocket, their swan song if you will. I've never been a fan of Silph Co as a dungeon because it's so easy to lose track of where you've been, but it is one of my favorite Smash Bros stages. There's 11 floors to explore, and I like to systematically clear it from bottom to the top. But then there's a bunch of locked rooms where you need a card key to open them, and a few thousand warp pads are scattered around, which means I'm visiting each floor a few times. Near the end, some guy gives you a Lapras, just in case you're too stupid to catch a Pokemon that can surf, and the rival makes an appearance too. Oh yeah, this was a huge blindside, like, the fuck? What are your motives? Losing this battle hurts the most because getting back here is pretty difficult during your first rodeo, and then you still have to deal with Giovanni afterwards. When you beat him, he takes the defeat so hard he quits Team Rocket. I mean, yeah, if I, a 40-year-old man, got my ass beat by a kid who just started training Pokemon, I'd be reevaluating my entire life too. And as a reward, Silph Co gives us the Master Ball. Yeah, I'm good. I may be 10, but I'm not above extortion. Now give me your checkbook or I will call the media and tell them how pathetic your business is. Saffron City is unique because it has 2 gyms. There's the Pokemon League gym specializing in psychic types, and next door is a dojo full of karate types. The reward here is a Hitmonlee or Hitmonchan, and not that I use either, but just to share something I found funny in competitive Pokemon during Gen 6, I played in the RU tier quite a bit. If you don't know what that means, I'm not going to explain today, but Pokemon would drop tiers if their usage in the community dropped below a certain percentage of battles, and every season, Hitmonchan would be just above the threshold to stay in RU, and it pissed so many people off because there's literally no reason to use Hitmonchan over every other fighting type in the tier. Like, why the fuck are you still here? And since I'm talking about free Pokemon, I gotta go back to Celadon City a 20-second time to get Eevee. Eevee is cool because it has 3 different evolutions of totally different types, but you already knew that. I'm familiar with Flareon, it was my go-to fire type before Vulpix. Nothing really special about it though. Jolteon is often considered the best counter to psychic types, like my fellow Gen 1er friend in high school would not shut up about it. And Vaporeon can eat shit. Into the ocean are the Seafoam Islands, an optional dungeon. To get through, you need the Strength HM to push boulders around to block a current, and doing this will also reveal Articuno, one of the game's legendary Pokemon. Gen 1 has this weird mechanic with the legendaries where the Pokemon are too difficult to catch, so they'll just dodge your Pokeballs. And it's not like they're too fast. Fat-ass Chansey does this too. Allegedly, you'll hit them if you keep trying, but the quicker way to circumvent this is to paralyze the Pokemon from the neck down. Literally, the second Pokeball I threw caught it. And this even works on electric types like Zapdos, the second legendary bird who hides in the power plant near the entrance of Rock Tunnel. So I've made my grand return to Cinnabar Island, and there's many more reasons why this is my favorite part of the game. Here, you can restore the fossil from Mount Moon, as well as an amber from Pewter City. I've never taken the time to use any of these Pokemon since they get revived at such a low level so close to the end of the game, but I've always liked Kabuto and Ammonite's designs. And I mentioned Blaine being this town's gym leader, but the door to the gym is locked. For some reason I could never figure this out as a kid, and I'll admit, I've played through this game like 3 times before solving it, cause I just didn't know. Is it like Viridian City? Do I need to wait for the gym leader to clock in for their shift? If I was a key, where would I be? My dad picked up this book from the library for me, How to Become a Pokemon Master, and for some reason the author refuses to talk about specifically this part. I'm not gonna give you any clues with how to deal with them, and your life will be ruined forever. Fuck you, Hank. Please don't harass him. Like, bro, how do you expect me to become a Pokemon master when you won't even tell me how to beat the game? Shit took me 6 years to figure out. But the key is in the Pokemon Mansion. And it's not even a difficult dungeon, I just couldn't figure it out. Like, you need to interact with these statues that open and close doors and then follow a mostly linear path. And the frustrating thing is that I knew the statues and doors were connected, I just couldn't figure out how to open the path, which literally only requires one brain cell. The Magmar is available here as an exclusive to Pokemon Blue, and once again, I really like it. You already know it's because of Water Blast, so Pokemon Red continues to be the worst game. And Blaine's got one of the best gyms, because it features trivia as a means to skip trainers. I'm surprised Pokemon doesn't include more trivia challenges in its games. Like, the most in-depth thing they ever did was in Pokemon Stadium 2 back in 2000. Like, with all the new Pokemon and regions that have appeared since, the trivia game needs to return. And already, I'm gonna talk about the 8th gym leader, who was finally returned to Viridian City. Giovanni. This is a clever idea. You ever beat a guy so hard he gets off his hustle and returns to his day job? Pokemon games are guilty at not developing their gym leaders at all, so when the only one to do it in the first games is the boss of the evil organization, it really stands out. I especially like how Giovanni's reveal is a mystery, and this extends to a lot of media I've seen, where his face is blacked out in lists of gym leaders, and when you beat him this time, I can only assume he either wifes up and gets his life back on track, or he overdoses on ear medication. It could go either way. But with all 8 badges, it's time to visit Victory Road, and I think it's funny that Kanto has a road half the length of the country just so they can verify that trainers have a badge in their pocket. Here you pass columns, traverse a pool of water, fend off wild Pokemon, and that's before we even get to the cave. This is the most forgettable cave in the game. These were the baby years of strength puzzles. See a boulder? Push it. Nothing too intricate, and compared to Seafoam Island's version of this puzzle, it's much less impressive. Moltres is available here, completing the legendary bird trio. Pokemon games like to have a set of 3 legendary Pokemon that are similar animals or follow the same motif. They're usually fucking annoying to catch, and I'm thankful this game kept it as simple as it's gonna get. But that about does it before I face off against the Elite Four. For a recap of my team, I've got Blastoise, Sandslash, Ninetale, Scyther, Slowbro, and Weezing. I don't want to sound like a fake fan, but this is actually my first time using most of these Pokemon in Gen 1. And I know I said I've made it to Cinnabar Island a few times back when I was a kid, but that was when I'd primarily stick with my starter and maybe a Nidoran or a Bird as backup. One of my biggest problems with Gen 1 is the level gap of wild Pokemon. Most Pokemon wind up being 10 or more levels below your team, and it can take an hour or 2 to catch one and get it caught up. Like, I would have loved to use Scyther back when I was 6, but when it's 20 levels short of my Blastoise, I don't want to raise it. Now, spending an entire day to evolve a Pidgey into a Pidgeot to beat Brock and Yellow, yeah, it's just something I had to live with. And unsurprisingly, I don't have much to say about the Elite Four. None of them are really all that imposing. I wasn't saving a certain Pokemon as a counter or using up turns to revive or heal anyone. All-out offense did the job every time. And I mean, that's usually the strat anyways, but I want the illusion I might need to use these techniques. Steamrolling Bruno every time isn't satisfying. And yeah, there's always an argument to be made that my team makeup can alter the difficulty. I think Lorelei and especially Lance can be challenging if you don't have proper counters, but that argument goes for the entire game. And following the Elite Four is the champion, the final boss. This is the most important battle in the game, because it's the last obstacle to determine if you belong in the Hall of Fame. And I'm really happy the franchise's first champion is your rival. You two were together from the beginning. Neighbors, childhood friends. But during the adventure, he was always getting the lead. Many times he challenged you to battles, and while they were some of the game's most difficult trials, you found a way to overcome him. And once you've proven you're the best trainer in the country, he's already found a spot on the throne. There is nobody else who should be the champion. And while you two are at the top, it's time to decide once and for all who is the very best, like no one ever was. What makes this battle exceptional compared to not only the gym leaders in Elite Four, but also the champions in the next few Pokemon games to follow, is that the rival doesn't focus on one type of Pokemon. He'll have a grass type, a water type, fire, psychic, flying, and a Rhydon with the worst attack spread I've ever seen. The diversity means you gotta save your Pokemon for the right time. That Venusaur is waiting in the back, and if you don't have a counter, it will maul you. I've never gotten this far with only a starter, so I wonder how much of a challenge it would have been when I was younger. Honestly, I'm not even sure I'd make it to him, knowing how my earliest playthroughs of Sapphire ended, but I'd say it's a good final battle to cap off the game. Post-game doesn't have a lot. You're expected to complete the Pokedex, and the stars have to align for me to attempt this in any game. The only new content there really is to explore Cerulean Cave, which was always blocked off until now. This is something that constantly kept my interest, because a cave that only the strongest trainer in the world can enter is just too intriguing. A lot of wild Pokemon are only available in here. Kadabra, Rhydon, Wigglytuff, Hypno, version exclusives like Arbok and Sandslash live here, Ditto's available. I can't skip over Ditto, who can shapeshift into any Pokemon. God, Gen 1 had so many cool ideas for creatures, but the coolest has yet to be seen. Hidden in the depths of Cerulean Cave is Mewtwo. I only knew Mewtwo from the movie about him, and even though I've forgotten its plot, Mewtwo has always had this presence of unimaginable power. Nowadays, I literally have nothing to say about him. I don't think I've ever used Mewtwo in a battle before. I just catch it and toss his ass in the PC. And then there's the other legendary, Mew. You can't actually catch it in these games, but Mew is real. You've probably heard about the rumor that Mew was hiding under a truck at the SSN. How do you get there? I mean, I haven't tried that hard, but I'm pretty sure this is a made-up location. But why is this rumor so popular if you can't get there? If you know, please share. And that's it for Pokemon Red. For the game that kicked off the massive franchise that Pokemon will become, it's not hard to see how this became such a phenomenon. The difficulty is just right, where anybody can pick it up, and having 151 creatures to collect is a huge selling point. There's a Pokemon that will appeal to everyone, and getting to carry around 6 at a time is brilliant. Additionally, being able to use the link cable to battle and trade Pokemon with other players gives the game much more longevity, as players have a reason to catch and raise them all. I may not have been around back then, but it seems like an experience the world had never seen before. But the games are far from perfect. I've given a couple critiques already, but it really sucks how limited the selection of attacks Pokemon can learn is. Ignoring TMs for a moment, there's a lot of Pokemon that only get like 1 or 2 good moves. Scyther, for instance, is good for Slash and nothing else. And types like Poison, Bug, Dragon, and Ghost lack any especially strong moves. There's a lot of Pokemon I've picked up, but gave up on because of the attacks they learn. Like, why would I use Pidgey when the strongest flying type attack it learns is half the strength of Spearows? And that's what the TMs are for. They help Pokemon become viable. But only being able to use TMs once hurts. Like, if I get a TM for Fire Blast, I have to debate over who will learn it. Ninetales makes the most sense because it'll get the best damage output, but I could also teach it to Weezing and Slowbro, who can cover more matchups with it. Or if I'm in the hypothetical world where I want to play this game with friends for 100 hours, maybe I should save it for a Pokemon I've never used yet. And even if TMs could be reused, Gen 1's other biggest flaw comes into play. It's small inventory. Your bag can only carry 20 unique items, and it gets maxed out all the time. Before I tackle a dungeon, I'd always have to make a point to clear my inventory at the Pokemon Center so I could collect everything, but even the PC has its limits. Once that reaches 50, then you're really screwed. Like, yeah, I could dispose of TMs like Water Gun and Whirlwind because they're worthless, but the collector in me wants to have all the unused TMs archived in one place. But if I could say something positive about these flaws, it's that the limits of TMs make the game more meaningful. Nobody likes making choices, but the mental gymnastics of it all is a stress that can sometimes be exciting. And that goes back to what Pokemon is. You have hundreds of options to build your team, and before you get into it, everything is a mystery. Some Pokemon have advantages others won't, and because of each monster's strengths and weaknesses, anyone who plays Pokemon will have to make choices like what attacks to use and what Pokemon to raise. Because of this, any moment can be a linchpin to someone's experience, and memories of those moments that people fawn over is what's helped Pokemon succeed year after year. These games get a lot of hate for their limitations, and often I see the only compliment they receive is that they were the first games, which is pretty disrespectful if that's the only good thing you have to say. But Gen 1 still holds up. Agree or disagree, the core gameplay in Pokemon is using the same attack over and over again until you need to use a different attack. The games can be brain dead easy, but they can also trip you up. But it really depends on how you choose to play, and I can say that I get what I keep coming to Pokemon for out of Red. I love its Pokemon, I love its pacing. Yeah, I wish it was a bit more challenging with the team I used, but it's a game I have a history with and want to keep making history with. So let's keep making history with it. Pokemon Cock version. I show the box art, but I don't want to go to prison. Pokemon is a popular target for ROM hacks, fan games that use assets of the game they're copying. Sometimes they're completely original games, but this one is just Pokemon Red with a few changes. Mainly the starters are different, and all the text is rated M. My sister bought this for my birthday as a joke, and it's been chilling out on the bookshelf for 4 years like I'm not ashamed of owning it. Come into my room and ask me about it, I dare you. I wasn't planning on spending too much time on this, mainly because most of the dialogue will need a trigger trigger warning and get the video demonetized. But the writing kept me grinning the whole time I was playing it. It's so damn funny. Like, imagine me, but unhinged. Unfortunately, the game crashes if I try to save, but the hour I spent was easily worth it. And I think that's a good stopping point. I've made my praises and critiques, whined about the fanbase, and probably made a fool out of myself. But that's a broad range of feelings to have toward a game. Pokemon is one of, if not the most important video game series in my life. And I'm thankful for the first generation for molding me into who I am today. Thanks for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a like as it'll help the channel grow, and subscribe to get updates on my uploads as soon as they happen. But until then, I will see you all next time.